The war did not begin with fire. It began with laughter. Across the dark reaches of space, the alien fleets mocked what they saw on their screens. A single human ship drifted forward, its hull scarred with rust and age. Its paint was faded, its engines coughed with sparks, and its frame looked ready to fall apart. To the galaxy, it was not a warship at all. It was a relic, a joke, a piece of old iron that had somehow found itself in a fight it could not survive. The alien commanders sneered at their crews. This is what humans send against us. This broken shell? This is no battle. It is mercy to end it quickly. Laughter rolled through the ranks, carried across ships, repeated in alien tongues that all meant the same thing, weak. But inside the old ship, no one laughed. The crew strapped themselves into their stations with grim faces. The rust on the walls was real, and the engines did cough, but their hearts burned stronger than the ship's reactors. Captain Darius, an old soldier with scars on his jaw, looked around at his team. "They mock us," he said softly, his voice steady, "because they do not know us." The ship was named Resolute. It had flown for 3 generations of humans, patched and repatched, its metal carrying the memory of every battle fought before. Where the aliens saw weakness, the crew saw history. Each dent was a story. Each scar was a victory carved into steel dot from the viewports. The alien fleet spread like a storm. Dozens of gleaming ships, their hulls shining with alien technology, their weapons glowing with power. They were perfect, new, deadly. In front of them, Resolute looked like a dying beast. The first officer, Mara, young but sharp, leaned toward her captain. "Sir, their weapons are charging." "We can't match their numbers." "We don't match numbers," Darius said. "We match will." His eyes narrowed. And Earth never bowed to mockery. The aliens fired first. Brilliant lances of energy tore through space, aimed at the rusted hull. The human crew held their breath. The ship shuddered, alarms wailed, but the hull held. A cheer broke out in the lower decks. The aliens blinked in confusion. Their weapons should have torn the relic apart. But the Resolute had been rebuilt 100 times, layered with scraps and alloys no alien engineer understood. Its rust was only skin deep. Its bones were iron forged from Earth's will. "Return fire," Darius ordered. The human guns were ancient compared to alien weapons. They were heavy cannons that spat metal slugs instead of energy beams. But when the slugs flew, they moved with terrifying force. One alien ship exploded on the first hit, torn in half. Another spun out of formation, its hull punctured like paper. Silence fell across the alien coms. Laughter faded. Shock spread. The rusted ship had killed their own. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew sat straighter, pride filling their chests. Mara grinned despite the alarms flashing red around her. "They're not laughing anymore, sir." Captain Darius allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Then the war has finally begun." The alien fleet surged forward, no longer amused but enraged. They poured fire into the human ship. Explosions rippled across its hull, decks shook, pipes burst. Men and women screamed, but still the ship held. Still the guns fired back. What the aliens never understood was this. Humans did not measure strength in polish or perfection. They measured it in how many times you could stand after falling. And this ship, this crew, this moment, would be the proof the galaxy could not ignore. The Resolute, old and rusted, entered the storm not as prey, but as defiance itself. And the aliens, once so certain of their power, began to taste the first sharp edge of fear. The alien fleet circled like wolves, their ships gleaming in the void. To them, the Resolute was nothing but an animal too weak to escape the hunt. They fired again, energy beams slashing through the dark. Flames erupted along the human ship's side. Plating cracked. Alarms screamed across the decks. Yet still, it did not fall down in the engine room. Grease-stained hands worked faster than any machine. Engineers strapped in with belts and ropes as sparks rained over them. Coolant lines ruptured. One shouted. Another voice answered, "Patch it with steel. Use whatever you can." They were not fighting with perfect tools or flawless parts. They were fighting with scraps, bolts, and the memory of every old ship they had kept alive before. Mara steadied herself at her console, glancing at her captain. "Sir, we won't last long if they keep pressing. The hull's holding, but it's not invincible." Captain Darius stood tall, one hand gripping the railing. His face was calm, his eyes unyielding. "That's what they think, Mara. They see rust and dents. They think it means weakness. But this ship carries Earth's pride. And pride is harder to break than steel." Every man and woman aboard felt those words. The Resolute was not just a ship. It was a story that had survived past wars, stitched together by hands that refused to surrender. Its cannons may have been old, its armor patched 100 times, but every scar was proof that humanity endured. On the alien command ship, their leader scowled. His voice was sharp, filled with disbelief. "How can this relic survive our barrage? Why does it not break?" His officers trembled, uncertain of how to answer. The truth was simple. Aliens had grown soft in their perfection. Their ships were built to look flawless, every surface polished, every weapon efficient. They had forgotten what it meant to fight with desperation, to claw victory out of broken scraps. Humans had never forgotten. The crew of the Resolute moved with fierce rhythm. One officer rerouted power from broken lights to the weapons. Another carried ammunition by hand through smoke-filled corridors. Injured men tied bandages with one hand and kept working with the other. Nobody stopped. Nobody quit. In the hangar bay, young recruits watched the battle on flickering screens. Fear gripped their chests, but one of the veterans, a gray-haired mechanic named Yara, barked at them. "You think this ship is dying? Look closer. Rust is just skin. Underneath is iron, and iron doesn't break easy. Now grab those shells and get moving." The recruits obeyed, their fear turning into fire. Pride filled them, the same pride that lived in every human heart when mocked or doubted. The alien fleet adjusted, forming tighter lines, pouring heavier fire. But now the Resolute fought back harder. Its cannons thundered, punching holes in ships that were supposed to be invincible. Each alien loss was like a slap across their arrogance. Mara grinned, despite the chaos around her. "We're bleeding them, sir. They thought we'd fall in minutes. Now they're paying for every laugh they gave." Captain Darius' voice was steady as stone. "Good, let them feel it. Let them see that humanity does not bow." In the quiet moments between volleys, the crew thought of Earth. They remembered the cities left behind, the families watching the skies, the history of warriors who had always fought against impossible odds. From stone spears to iron swords, from tanks to rockets, humans had always been underestimated until the battle began. The Resolute shook again as another barrage struck, but still it held. Still it answered with fire. Still it refused to die. On alien channels, whispers spread. How is it still standing? What kind of creatures are these humans? Their mockery had turned into confusion, and confusion was turning into fear. The Resolute looked like rust and ruin to the galaxy. But to its crew, it was iron, pride, and the unbroken will of humanity. And as long as it drew breath, it would fight. The alien fleet moved like a storm of light, weapons flashing with every volley. Their ships were sleek and new, built for speed and precision. Against them, the Resolute looked like a drifting wreck, smoke trailing from its battered hull. The aliens tightened their formation, confident that the next strike would end the human relic for good. On the human bridge, Captain Darius studied the tactical display. His crew waited, eyes fixed on him. The ship groaned as another barrage slammed into its side, shaking the deck beneath their boots. Sparks burst from panels, alarms wailed, but still the ship lived. They think they have us cornered, Darius said at last. His voice was calm, unshaken. They think we can only take the hits. Let's show them what this old ship can do. Mara, his first officer, leaned forward. Sir, weapons are hot, but targeting systems are unstable. We'll have to fire manually. Darius gave a grim smile. Then we fire with human hands. Lock in, and give them our answer. Across the ship, gunners strapped themselves into heavy turrets. Their controls were rough, old-fashioned, nothing like the smooth alien interfaces. They had no perfect targeting computers, no elegant systems. But they had instinct. They had practice. They had the will to strike back. The first alien squadron swept close, energy cannons blazing. The Resolute staggered under the assault, but then its cannons roared. Metal slugs screamed into the void, moving faster than the eye could follow. The first shot hit an alien cruiser square on its side. The alien shields flared bright, then shattered like glass. The slug punched through the ship's core, and in a single moment, the cruiser exploded, torn apart in a burst of fire. Silence fell across the alien comms. For a second, no one moved. No one spoke. Then the second human shot fired, and another alien vessel spun out of control, its engines ripped apart. Debris scattered, glowing like falling stars. On the Resolute, cheers erupted across every deck. Gunners pounded their consoles with fists, mechanics shouted from the engine rooms. Even wounded soldiers grinned through bloodied faces. For the first time since the battle began, the humans weren't just surviving, they were winning. Mara slammed her fist against the console. Direct hit. Sir, we got them. Captain Darius allowed himself the faintest nod. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with fire. Good, keep firing. Let them see the strength they mocked. The alien commander on the flagship was no longer laughing. His mandibles clicked nervously as his officers shouted reports. 2 ships destroyed. Another crippled. Panic edged into their voices. This was not how the fight was supposed to go. This was supposed to be a show of dominance, not a battle where their flawless fleet took losses to a rusted human relic. The commander roared for calm, but doubt had already begun to spread. Their enemy was not weak. Their prey had teeth. The Resolute's cannons roared again, punching through another alien frigate. Fire consumed it as it broke apart, fragments spinning through the void. Every shot carried the weight of human defiance. Every strike hammered fear deeper into alien hearts. Still, the price was heavy. The Resolute shook violently as alien fire tore through its side. Bulkheads collapsed, smoke filled the corridors, and more names were added to the list of the dead. Yet not a single crew member faltered. Every hand remained on their post. Every voice shouted orders and warnings. Every heart beat with one truth. They would not bow. Mara wiped sweat from her brow, her hands moving across the cracked console. We've bloodied them, sir. But they're not retreating. They're regrouping. Darius stared out at the wreckage of alien ships drifting in the void. His voice was quiet but strong. Good, let them come again. We'll be ready. The first strike is ours, but the war is only beginning. In the silence after the explosions faded, the galaxy itself seemed to pause. The aliens had mocked the human ship as rust and ruin. But now, for the first time, they knew fear. And the crew of the Resolute knew something greater than survival. They knew they could win. The wreckage of 3 alien ships drifted across the void, their flames glowing like dying suns. The alien fleet pulled back, regrouping in silence. Where there had once been mocking laughter, now there was unease. The rusted human ship had struck, and struck hard. On the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Darius leaned over the console, his jaw tight. The ship groaned with each movement, bulkheads straining under damage, but still it lived. Smoke curled around cracked panels, and the crew worked with shaking hands that refused to stop. Mara glanced at him. Sir, their fleet is regrouping. They'll strike harder this time. We can't keep trading fire like this. Not for long. Darius' gaze shifted to a locked panel at the far side of the bridge. His expression hardened. We don't need to. We've been holding something back, Mara frowned. You mean, yes, Darius cut in. It's time. The Resolute had always been more than it seemed. To outsiders, it was a relic, rusted and patched beyond repair. But inside its bones lay something hidden, something Earth had sworn never to use unless pushed to the edge. Deep in the ship's belly, behind armored doors, slept a weapon designed not for pride, but for survival. In the engineering decks, crews opened sealed compartments that hadn't been touched in decades. Thick doors slid aside, revealing ancient barrels and humming cores. Engineers stared in awe. Even after all this time, the weapon pulsed with energy. Is this real? One whispered. It's real, said Yara, the old mechanic, her voice rough. And it's ours. Let's wake it up. The hidden weapon was not elegant like alien cannons. It was brutal, raw, a rail system that fired slugs the size of small vehicles, accelerated with magnetic force so fierce they could punch through almost anything. It had been outlawed by human treaties after Earth's wars, considered too destructive, too wild. But treaties meant nothing when survival was at stake. As the alien fleet prepared their next assault, the Resolute turned slowly, almost weakly, its rusted hull glowing with fire scars. The aliens saw it as limping prey. They formed attack lines, confident they would finally crush it. The hidden weapon charged. Lights across the human ship dimmed as power was drawn into the rail system. The deck trembled under the buildup of force. Every crew member held their breath as the weapon reached its peak. Target their flagship, Darius ordered, his voice cold. Mara's hands shook as she input the coordinates manually. Her console buzzed with warnings. The weapon might tear the ship apart if fired. She looked at Darius. Sir, if this misfires, we're finished. Darius met her eyes without hesitation. If we don't fire, we're finished anyway. The order was given. The weapon released. A blinding streak of metal tore across space, faster than the eye could follow. It cut through alien defenses like paper, shattering their shields, ripping straight into the heart of their flagship. For a moment, the void was silent. Then the alien command ship exploded. A brilliant storm of fire and twisted metal. Shockwaves rippled through the fleet as their leader's vessel was reduced to fragments. Gasps and cheers erupted across the Resolute. The bridge shook with the sound of human voices rising together. Even Mara, who had feared the shot, couldn't stop herself from smiling. Direct hit. The flagship is gone. On the alien channels, panic erupted. Officers screamed. Their formations broke apart. Without their command ship, the fleet was leaderless, their arrogance shattered. The humans had not just wounded them, they had struck at their very heart, but the cost was heavy. The weapon's recoil sent cracks running through the ship's spine. Power flickered, engines sputtered. Half the crew thought the ship might split apart at any moment. Down in engineering, Yara held onto a pipe as smoke filled the room. She's hurting bad, she muttered. But she's still alive. And so are we. On the bridge, Darius straightened, his voice carrying through the chaos. They wanted to see weakness. Instead, they saw strength. This ship is not rust. It is iron. It is human will. And it will not break. The alien fleet scattered, some retreating, others holding position in disbelief. For the first time, the galaxy had witnessed what humanity kept hidden behind scars and rust. And for the first time, the aliens truly feared what the humans might do next. The wreckage of the alien flagship still burned in the black, fragments drifting like shattered stars. For the humans, it was a moment of triumph. For the aliens, it was terror. Their mocking voices had gone silent, replaced with disbelief and fear, but victory came at a cost. The Resolute groaned under the weight of its hidden weapons recoil. Deck plates had buckled, conduits had burst, and half the ship's power grid was fried. The old vessel shook with every turn, smoke pouring from vents as alarms screamed across every level dot in the engineering bay. Yara slammed her fist against a failing control board. "Coolant's gone, stabilizers are down, and the spine's cracked," she barked to her crew. "But we're still breathing, and as long as this ship breathes, so do we. Patch what you can. Steel, wires, spit, use anything that holds." Young recruits scrambled with tools, their hands blackened with soot, their faces pale but determined. They weren't just keeping a ship alive. They were keeping hope alive. On the bridge, Mara steadied herself as another tremor rocked the ship. "Captain, damage is critical. If they press us hard now, we might not stand a chance." Captain Darius' voice was firm, steady as iron. "Then we won't give them the chance. We fight back with everything we have left." His eyes fixed on the enemy fleet forming once more. "They think we are wounded prey. Let's show them wounded prey can bite hardest." The aliens did not hesitate. Enraged at the loss of their flagship, they descended like a storm. Energy beams lanced through the void, smashing into the Resolute. Explosions tore open bulkheads, fire swept through corridors, and bodies were thrown against walls. Screams echoed, but no one abandoned their posts. The gunners roared as they fired back. Old cannons spat steel slugs into the dark, tearing into alien hulls. A destroyer cracked in two. Another ship spiraled away, burning. The humans bled, but so did their enemies. For every alien shot that struck, a human answer followed. The void lit with fire, a deadly exchange where neither side yielded. The Resolute was breaking, piece by piece, but it refused to fall. In the hangar bay, medics worked on the wounded while the deck shook. Blood mixed with smoke, but soldiers gritted their teeth, rising even with bandaged limbs. "Put me back on the line," one man shouted. "I can still load shells." No one dared stop him. Fear gripped the alien ranks. Their sleek ships had never faced such resistance. They had crushed worlds before, silencing entire races, but never had they bled so much against a single vessel. The humans did not fight like prey. They fought like predators cornered, every strike born of survival. On the alien command channel, voices quivered. Why do they not fall? How can this rusted shell endure? Their leaders gave no answer, for they had none. On the Resolute, Mara's console sparked as she forced it to life. 2 enemy frigates down, but we've lost secondary shields. Hull integrity at 40%. Captain Darius gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles turned white. Yet his voice never wavered. "As long as we stand, they'll remember this day. They'll remember humanity is not to be mocked." Another wave of alien fire ripped through the ship. The deck shuddered violently, throwing men and women to the floor. One of the main guns fell silent, its crew killed in the blast. Still, others rushed to take their place. No station was left unmanned. In the void, the Resolute blazed with wounds. Fires raged across its hull, holes torn into its frame, but its cannons still roared. It was no longer a ship to the enemy. It was a monster made of iron and will, refusing to die. For hours the battle raged, neither side giving quarter. The aliens fought with technology, but the humans fought with something far stronger: pride, defiance, and a spirit no machine could measure. By the end of the exchange, both fleets floated in ruin. Dozens of alien ships smoldered. The Resolute was barely holding together, but it still sailed, scarred and burning, yet unbroken. Mara leaned against her console, exhaustion in her eyes. "Sir, if this continues, there may not be enough of us left to fire back." Darius looked out at the battlefield, his voice low but fierce. "Then we'll fight with our last breath. Let them see what it means to face humanity in the void." And in that moment, the Resolute, rusted and battered, was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol, burning bright in the fire of the void. A symbol that humanity would never bow. The battlefield hung silent for a moment, filled with drifting wrecks and trails of fire. Alien ships floated broken, their once perfect formations shattered. The Resolute, though scarred and burning, still moved through the debris. Its rusted hull glowed with wounds, but its cannons remained alive. On the alien channels, whispers replaced confidence. This is not possible. How can they still be fighting? The mockery that had begun the war was gone, replaced by fear. The humans who were meant to be weak had become predators in the dark. On the bridge of the Resolute, Mara wiped blood from her forehead, forcing her failing console to display enemy positions. "Captain, they're pulling back." "But not in retreat. They're regrouping for another strike." Captain Darius nodded slowly. His voice was calm but heavy with resolve. "Good, let them come. The longer this battle lasts, the more the galaxy will see the truth. We are not the prey they mocked." Down in the lower decks, the crew moved like shadows through smoke and fire. Men and women patched holes with scraps of metal, carried ammunition through collapsed corridors, and kept the ship alive with sheer willpower. Every face bore exhaustion, but not one hand stopped working. In the hangar bay, Yara barked orders, her voice hoarse from smoke. "Seal that breach. Reinforce the bulkhead. We don't need pretty, we need strong." Her crew obeyed, hammering steel plates into place, welding over glowing cracks, fighting against time and destruction. The alien commander sat on his bridge, his claws scraping the arm of his chair. His officers trembled as reports poured in: more ships lost, morale collapsing, fear spreading through the fleet. "How can one rusted ship do this?" he snarled. "How can humans endure what no empire could?" But he already knew the answer. He had seen it in the human strikes, in the way they fought with bloodied hands and broken steel. This was not the strength of machines. It was the strength of hearts that refused to break. The Resolute moved forward, engines coughing fire, but its cannons locked onto the enemy. With each shot, another alien vessel cracked apart. The humans did not stop. They pressed harder, fiercer, as though pain only sharpened their will. Mara glanced at her captain, her voice ragged. "Sir, the crew's exhausted. They've been fighting nonstop for hours. We're running out of ammo, out of power, out of everything." Darius' eyes burned like iron. "We still have ourselves. And that is enough. As long as one of us stands, this ship stands." On the comms, a young gunner's voice broke through. "Captain, we've lost half our section, but we're not done. Give us a target." Darius answered without hesitation. "Then take aim at their pride. Show them what they mocked has teeth sharper than their steel." The gunners obeyed, their cannons roaring once more. Another alien ship fell, split by fire. Another squadron scattered, unwilling to press closer. Across the alien fleet, panic grew. Their soldiers had never known fear in battle. They had conquered without question, laughed at resistance, mocked the weak. But now, in the presence of one rusted human ship, they felt something new: doubt. The whispers spread faster than orders. What if we cannot win? What if this ship is not alone? Fear became poison in their ranks. On the Resolute, Mara's tired eyes widened as she read the incoming signals. "Sir, they're hesitating. They're breaking formation." Captain Darius stood tall, his battered uniform streaked with smoke and ash. He looked out at the scattered enemy fleet and spoke with iron in his voice. "Then the mockery is broken. They laughed at us once. They will never laugh again." The crew, bloodied and weary, heard his words. Pride filled their chests. They were no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting to prove something to the galaxy. The aliens had mocked the humans, calling them weak, broken, rusted. Now those same aliens trembled in fear. The tide of battle had shifted. And for the first time, the humans knew they had planted something far greater than victory. They had planted legend. The battlefield had grown quiet, but it was the silence of exhaustion, not peace. The alien fleet lingered in broken formation, hesitant to strike again. The Resolute drifted through fire and wreckage, its rusted hull scarred deeper than ever. Entire decks were gone, blown open to the void, and hundreds of crew had already fallen. On the bridge, Mara's hands trembled over the console. "Sir, we can't take another full assault. If they regroup, if they push one more time." She didn't finish the sentence. Everyone on the bridge knew what it meant. Captain Darius stood firm, despite the smoke curling around him. His uniform was torn, blood streaked across his jaw, but his voice carried steady. "Then we will not wait for their strike. We make our stand now." Mara blinked. "Sir, in this condition, we are more dangerous than ever," Darius said. His gaze swept the battered crew, each face marked by ash, blood, and fatigue. "Every ship in this fleet came here laughing at us. They will leave fearing us or not at all. We give them one last strike, one last fight, and if this ship dies, it dies a legend." The word spread across the comms, carried into the hangar, the engine decks, the gunnery stations. Wounded men and women lifted their heads. Engineers with blackened hands worked faster. Gunners tightened straps and loaded the last of the ammunition. No one thought of surrender. Down in engineering, Yara leaned against a bulkhead, sweat dripping into her eyes. "We can't hold her together much longer," she muttered. Then her voice rose, rough and fierce. "But she's got one fight left in her. That's all she needs." The alien commander knew the humans were weak, but something gnawed at him. His fleet had lost too much already. Each ship carried scars. Morale was cracking. He wanted victory, but fear whispered that this rusted beast could drag them all into the grave. Still, pride forced his hand. He gave the order, "Destroy them." The aliens advanced, weapons blazing. Brilliant beams tore across the void, hammering the Resolute. The old ship groaned like a dying giant. Fires ripped through its decks. More alarms shrieked. Still, it did not fall. "Target their carriers," Darius ordered, his voice rising above the chaos. "Cut off their reinforcements." The gunners obeyed. Cannons thundered, spitting their final rounds. One carrier erupted into flame, another spun crippled into the darkness. The aliens reeled, their perfect formations scattering under the brutal strike. But the cost was merciless. The Resolute shuddered as another beam smashed through its side. A section of the hull tore away, sucking men and women into the void. Mara's console sparked violently, throwing her to the deck. She coughed blood, but forced herself back up. Hull integrity collapsing. "We can't hold much longer," Darius' jaw clenched. His eyes burned with unyielding fire. "Then we hold as long as we can. One more strike. One more." The hidden weapon deep in the ship powered up again, but this time the system screamed in protest. Lights flickered, engines died. If they fired, the ship itself might not survive. Mara looked at him, fear and resolve mixing in her voice. "If we use it again, sir, it'll tear us apart." Darius' voice was steady as steel. "Then let it tear us apart. Better to die striking than to fade in mockery," the order was given. The rail weapon charged, draining the last of the ship's power. Darkness spread across decks, leaving only the hum of the weapon alive. Every crew member braced, knowing this would be their final stand. The shot fired. A streak of burning metal carved across the void, slamming into the largest alien battleship. It tore through shields, hull, and engines in a single instant. The battleship detonated in a massive explosion, its debris scattering like sparks into the black. The alien fleet froze. Their pride was gone. Their fear was absolute. One ship rusted, scarred, broken had shattered them. On the Resolute, silence filled the bridge. The weapon had torn the ship's spine. Decks collapsed. Systems failed. Mara fell to her knees, her voice a whisper. "We..." Did it? Captain Darius stood unmoving, eyes locked on the burning remains of the alien battleship. His voice carried through the failing comms, strong even as the ship groaned its last. This is humanity's answer. Remember it. The lights flickered out, leaving only the fire of wreckage outside to shine on the faces of the crew. The Resolute had made its last stand. And the galaxy would never forget it. The Resolute floated in silence, its hull torn open, its engines dead. Fires still burned along its sides, but the guns had gone quiet at last. The once rusted ship, mocked as useless, had given everything in one final strike. Across the battlefield, the alien fleet wavered. Their pride was shattered, their formations broken. The loss of their battleship had carved fear into their hearts deeper than any wound. Some ships turned and fled into the dark. Others froze in place, unwilling to test the humans again. On the ruined bridge of the Resolute, smoke drifted in the air. Mara lay against her console, blood staining her uniform, but her eyes still glowed with pride. Around her, the few surviving crew pulled themselves up. Battered but alive. Captain Darius stood at the center, his voice calm despite the wreckage around him. Status report. A young officer's voice cracked as he spoke. Weapons. Gone. Engines. Gone. Hull is collapsing. But sir, the fleet is retreating. We broke them. Mara coughed, then forced a smile. They'll never laugh again. The crew, bruised and broken, let out weary cheers. They had survived where no one believed they could. The galaxy had expected a quick defeat, a moment of humiliation for humanity. Instead, they had carved their names into history with fire. In the alien fleet, silence hung heavy. Commanders whispered of the human ship, their voices trembling. It should not have stood. It should not have fought. Yet it did. The tale began to spread among the survivors. The rusted ship that would not die. The humans who fought with nothing but iron hearts. Back on Earth, signals of the battle reached waiting ears. Families, soldiers, and leaders listened as fragmented transmissions told the story. Mothers wept, fathers stood in silence. Children stared wide-eyed at the news. Humanity had not only survived, it had struck fear into the galaxy. The Resolute itself was beyond saving. Fires ate through its decks, systems failed one after another. Yet in those last moments, the ship carried no shame. It carried pride. Its rusted frame had held long enough to prove that humans could not be mocked. Darius looked at his crew, those few still standing. His voice was soft, but it carried weight. This ship was never weak. It was never broken. It was human, and that is enough. Yara's voice came through the comms, faint from the dying engine room. Captain, I can't hold her together anymore. She's going. Darius closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with steel resolve. Then let her go. She's done more than any ship could. She's earned her rest. Outside, the Resolute's fires burned brighter, a beacon against the dark. The alien fleet, once so confident, scattered before it. Not because of its guns, not because of its weapons, but because of what it represented: defiance, pride, and a spirit that would not bow. As the last systems failed, Mara leaned toward her captain, her voice weak. Sir, when they tell this story, what will they call it? Darius looked out at the void, at the wreckage of alien ships drifting like ghosts. His answer was simple. They'll call it a legend. Moments later, the Resolute's core gave out. The ship split apart, consumed in a silent explosion that lit the battlefield one final time. Pieces of rusted steel scattered through the void, glowing like embers of a dying fire. But to the galaxy, those embers were not the end. They were the beginning. Alien survivors carried the tale back to their worlds. Whispers spread quickly. The humans, mocked as weak, had stood against an entire fleet and won. The story grew with every telling, until even the greatest empires spoke of the rusted ship that fought like a monster. And on Earth, when the survivors finally returned in escape pods, They were not greeted with pity. They were greeted as heroes. Children painted the Resolute on walls, soldiers swore oaths in its name, and leaders spoke of it as the first chapter of humanity's rise. The Resolute, once a relic, had become something far greater. It was proof. Proof that humans, though scarred and mocked, could never be broken. In the end, the ship died. But its story lived on. A new legend had been born.